When discussing detail, we often focus on things like this.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Easter eggs in Jurassic Park movies.
However, detail in filmmaking can and often does play a much larger role in the storytelling itself. Skilled filmmakers can use hidden clues throughout their movies to shape the story, add to the story, or even craft an entirely new story underneath whatever we're watching. It's worth mentioning that most films in fact don't need layers and layers of clues and world building to be considered great. Recent releases like Challengers or Top Gun, where the story remains relatively clear throughout, are fantastic as they are. Same thing goes for classics like Forrest Gump or Lost in Translation.
Hello.
Hello.
You ever switch seats?
I like this one. If I fall, someone will notice.
Yeah.
Detail, clues, and this type of layered approach to storytelling are simply tools, and as all tools, they're best to be used only when appropriate to the specific project at hand. When noting down examples for this essay, I couldn't help but notice that different filmmakers use this story through detail approach in a few very different ways. I was, to be honest, struggling to group filmmakers like David Lynch or Yorgos Lanthimos. The works of both of those directors are filled with metaphors, motifs, and hidden meanings, but the nature of the work is also such of surrealism and dreamlike world building.
Just like you killed a member of my family, now you gotta kill a member of your family to balance things out, understand? I can't tell you who to kill, of course, that's for you to decide, but if you don't do it, they will all get sick and die. Bob will die, Kim will die, your wife will die. They will all get sick and die.
In such cases, any hidden meanings might matter even less than whatever the expositional story on screen is. We could try and analyze this, for example. But I'm inclined to say that this moment is less meaningful and more a stylistic and visual choice. The point of surrealism is that we don't know what's real and what isn't, so it doesn't really feel right saying that Lynchian films have an objectively deeper meaning we're meant to understand through these moments. Atlanta also comes to mind here. We could overanalyze what everything means, but the creators themselves have reminded us this. Stop trying to overanalyze everything, you're ruining the vibe. When doing a simple Google search for films that have a lot of detail, most lists out there cross over a lot in terms of films they mention. Nolan's filmography always comes up, as do 90s classics like Fight Club or The Usual Suspects. These films are all undoubtedly rich in detail, and the filmmaking intention here is clear. However, these are films where any hidden clues are an essential part of the story. The film simply doesn't work unless you connect all the dots and threads that are placed throughout it. David Fincher needs an incredibly detailed approach to when using Tyler Durden throughout Fight Club, as the reveal that Tyler isn't real is an absolutely essential part to everything the story stands for.
Why would anyone possibly confuse you with me?
I don't know.
You got it.
Detail, in this case, is vital to the existence of a quality picture. Much like a murder mystery or like metaphysical films, in this case, detail arguably matters most, as without it, there is no story really, and the film would feel incredibly incomplete. It's fair to say that one could also do this visually or stylistically. Wes Anderson comes to mind here, in which case the detail isn't as essential for the existence of the film, however, a lack of such would take away from the heart and the root of the picture. Then we have films that use detail not to shape the story, but rather to build another layer of story below whatever we're watching. Stylistically, a good example would be The Truman Show, where the story on hand is about Truman existing in this fake world, but the cinematography and production design simultaneously build the world itself and tell us essential information about the reality of things. Other films like The Conversation, or I'm thinking of Ending Things, or most of David Lowery's filmography all hide answers to questions throughout the story, but the viewer needs to connect the dots themselves to achieve a greater understanding of whatever they're watching. In all these examples, the film still works on the surface level, but there is so much more depth hiding in plain sight. The White Lotus does this, as does the greatest show of all time, Breaking Bad. Controversial episode Fly comes to mind, where Walter obsesses about getting rid of a fly that has contaminated his laboratory.
No cooking until this fly is dealt with. Have I been speaking to myself?
The timer went off, yo. How long is this batch gonna be good for? An hour or two?
The batch will be good for nothing if we don't clear the contaminant.
On surface level, watching the struggle is enough to keep our attention and interest, but the context of Walter's circumstances, as well as Rian Johnson's directing of the episode, give us more meaning and add an additional layer to the plot. Walter's life has been contaminated, and he can't seem to fix that.
What, you saying you want to die?
I'm saying I've lived too long. You want them to actually miss you, you know?
Taking it a step further, we have films where the hidden meaning is arguably the meaning, and everything else we're watching is a masterful mask. Kubrick's work is the perfect example of this. Eyes Wide Shut specifically comes to mind, where the story is seemingly about a cult and a man and a woman trying to keep their marriage alive, but really, it's about Hollywood's abuse of young women. Another recent example of this would be the controversial Beau is Afraid, which I consider a masterful film. It would be very easy to classify Beau is Afraid in type 0, as it is a very surreal picture. But I think in this case particularly, Ari Aster is very specific, not only about the questions he asks, but also about providing answers to those questions in hidden places and through a mountain of detail throughout. Each of these examples merits a video essay on their own, which is exactly the point. There is plenty to analyze and unpack here, and the true story is not the one we're watching.
I mean, maybe Hey.
This essay came to mind as I recently watched Maxine and remained a little disappointed. I did quite enjoy the movie, but it's not on the same level as Pearl, which is a deeply layered film.
Please, Emma, stop!
I'm sorry, it's time.
I wondered why I enjoyed Pearl so much, and the answer was clear. That film was filled from top to bottom with detail around its metaphors and themes, and it allowed me to connect a lot of the dots myself, whilst Maxine felt a little surface level. And similarly, whilst I'm thoroughly enjoying this latest season of House of the Dragon, I would be lying if I said it quite reaches the level of quality that Game of Thrones had in its early seasons. Game of Thrones was an incredibly detail-oriented show, particularly in its character building and character depth, whilst House of the Dragon still seems to be finding its feet in this area. Now, having said all of this, I've given Superbad and The Hangover 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I've also given Eyes Wide Shut 5 stars on Letterboxd. Whilst I do think, of course, that Eyes Wide Shut is an objectively better film, comparing the two is a little like comparing apples and oranges. If The Hangover had a lot of the hidden subplots that Eyes Wide Shut has, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I did, because that's just not the film. Detail is a tool. When it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. And at the end of the day, who can say really if apples are better than oranges? Guys, thank you so much for watching another video essay. I really enjoyed doing this one. Please consider liking the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribing. And also let me know about any films I missed that contain a crazy amount of detail, either in type 1, 2, or 3. It's impossible to mention every film that has a lot of detail in one video essay, so please let me know some obvious examples that I missed. Thank you all. I love you all. Have an awesome week ahead.